what if the things that often draw people to you, that pull, that magnetic thing people notice, isn't really about your strengths
Oh,
or your charm?
right. What if it's something uh, darker? Something coming from the parts of you that are, well, unhealed.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's a really unsettling idea, isn't it?
It really is. We tend to think magnetism is, positive, something you build.
Mm.
But the material we're looking at today paints a much more complex and honestly a more dangerous picture.
It suggests our unaddressed emotional wounds, the deep stuff, aren't just inside us.
No, they become like external signals, a kind of vibration people pick up on.
And not always in a good way. So this
Yeah.
deep dive, it's really into this stark, quite challenging idea.
Mhm.
If we carry significant emotional pain, from trauma, neglect, abandonment, that deep shame,
Yeah.
and we don't do the really hard work of healing it, that pain doesn't just stay buried.
It leaks out. It,
Yeah.
it broadcasts.
Right.
And it creates what this source material calls a dangerously magnetic energy signature.
Yeah.
That phrase itself.
It stalks you, doesn't it? Dangerously magnetic.
Yes. So our mission today really is to unpack that. The source frames it very much as a warning. How does this unhealed stuff act like a dangerous magnet?
Right. What kind of people, what experiences does it pull towards us?
Exactly. And critically, why does the source insist that dealing with this internal landscape isn't just like self-help nice to have, but absolutely necessary?
Necessary to avoid, well, potential destruction for ourselves and people we connect with.
It's heavy stuff,
Huh.
but the source argues it's vital we confront it.
It really is. And the material, it doesn't ease you in. It just hits you with. There's a dangerously magnetic quality about someone who hasn't healed.
With that phrase alone,
Yeah.
it's a magnet, sure, but the danger is part of the pull.
It describes this pull not as charisma exactly, but as a certain vibration, a seductive energy.
And this energy, this vibration, isn't coming from confidence or security. It's rooted in pain.
Uh-huh.
The source uses that image of a moth to a flame, which, immediately tells you where that's likely headed, getting burned.
Yeah, like being pulled towards something intense, maybe even appealing from afar, but up close. It's destructive, harmful.
And the material is clear about what's behind it.
Mm.
Deep emotional pain, unresolved trauma, those ear wounds screaming for attention.
So the magnetism is actually the raw nerve of that suffering, kind of paradoxically pulling things in.
That's the idea. And here's where the core warning comes in. If this unbalanced energy, this vibration of unhealed pain, is left unchecked, if it's the main signal you're sending out,
Then what?
the source says it becomes a force of destruction. It's not passive, it's active, corrosive.
So it doesn't just attract things randomly.
No, it specifically attracts the conditions and the people that actually lead to breakdown, to ruin.
Wow. Okay, so this isn't just about like awkward dates or feeling a bit off. This is suggesting something much deeper.
Much deeper. That the unaddressed pain generates an energy that fundamentally undermines your well-being, your connections, leading to real harm.
It sets up this really stark contrast then. On one side, this dangerous, trauma-fueled magnetism.
And on the other, what the source calls true magnetism, which is described as being emotionally stable, inwardly powerful, emitting an energy that draws the right people, the right opportunities, things that help you grow, healthy things.
And the path to that kind of magnetism, the true kind, it bypasses all the surface stuff, doesn't it? Like networking tricks or trying to act confident.
Completely. It starts, the source says, unequivocally with radical healing. That's the foundation. Nothing else works without it.
Radical healing.
Oh.
And the source is clear, this isn't easy.
Not at all. It's not a spa day. It's described as not a glamorous process. It's brutal, honest, and necessary.
Brutal because you have to face things you've probably avoided for years.
Honest because you have to see yourself in your past without, kidding yourself.
And necessary because the alternative, according to this warning, is, well, destruction. It sets the stakes really high from the start.
Which leads right into this next really critical idea. The hidden danger that your wounds aren't just history. They are actively running the show right now.
Running the show. The material uses that powerful phrase, describing people walking around with broken emotional circuitry.
That phrase, broken emotional circuitry, it really lands, doesn't it? It suggests the core system is damaged. The way we process feelings, experiences, it's faulty.
Not just bad memories, but the wiring itself is messed up, leading to these predictable malfunctions in how we act and relate.
And this damage, the source says, often comes from those unspoken scars, from childhood usually. Neglect, abandonment, deep shame, rejection.
Those really foundational hurts that if you never deal with them, they don't just vanish.
No, the source insists they don't just heal over time, they rot beneath the surface. Another really unsettling image. They become this silent, hidden force constantly feeding the subconscious, and this rot, this unaddressed pain, it shapes our most basic behaviors.
How we talk, how we try to love, often dysfunctionally.
How we use seduction, maybe without even realizing it, how we might manipulate.
Even if we don't see it as manipulation.
Right, and how we suffer in these repeating, painful patterns.
And that's where the material just kind of hits you with that direct challenge. You think you're in control of your life. Think again.
Yeah. It's trying to shatter that illusion that our conscious choices are driving everything. The source argues that so much of what we do, how we decide, is actually being dictated by these hidden, unhealed wounds.
The examples make it pretty clear, like someone exploding in rage over something tiny, a full-on tantrum that seems totally out of proportion.
Or that person who's just paralyzed by this irrational fear everyone will leave them, even when things are fine.
Or the desperate need for validation, constantly needing approval from, well, anyone.
The source argues that's not the adult acting, it's the wounded inner child screaming for attention.
And this isn't just psychological theory, is it? In this framework, that wounded child is the engine driving that dangerously magnetic energy.
Yeah.
It's the source of the broadcast.
Exactly, and that brings us right back to the magnetism itself. The source points out that the seductive pull coming from these unhealed places, it's often mistaken.
Mistaken for what? Confidence? Charisma?
Yeah, by others, and maybe even by the person themselves. There's an intensity there, maybe an allure of depth or complexity that pulls people in.
But the source is blunt about it.
Very. But it's not. It's survival.
Survival energy dressed up as charm. Wow. It's magnetism born from need, not abundance.
And that's the central danger, isn't it? Because if your magnetism comes from need, you're not attracting healthy connections. You're attracting people who resonate with that need, that wound.
Leading to that devastating consequence the source warns about. Seductive energy built on trauma will seduce the wrong people and destroy both of you in the process.
So the very energy pulling people in is actually toxic, destined to either replay the old trauma or create new destruction in those relationships.
It really emphasizes that it's not just about what you consciously do, but this underlying frequency, this vibration shaped by your past.
Right. The source hammers this home. Our history isn't just a story. It's an active force manipulating our present, often totally outside our awareness.
Most people have no idea how much their past controls their present. That's chilling. It implies we're kind of puppets to our own history if we don't wake up to it.
And the examples are so relatable, like growing up with emotionally unavailable parents or caregivers.
Okay.
If love felt unpredictable or just wasn't there consistently, you might unconsciously learn that love is unpredictable. It feels familiar.
So then, as an adult,
You keep getting drawn to partners who are also unavailable, recreating the exact dynamic that hurt you in the first place. Your internal compass is basically broken, pointing towards familiar pain.
or the other example, if you only got praise for achievements, good grades, winning things.
Yeah. The source argues that teaches you deep down that your worth isn't inherent. It has to be earned constantly.
Which drives you to become this relentless overachiever, always chasing the next validation, but never feeling truly okay.
Exactly. Trapped on that treadmill. And the source is emphatic. This is not harmless. These patterns aren't just quirks.
They're the foundation of your energy field, your vibration. They dictate the signal you're sending out.
And the warning tied to this is cyclical and pretty severe. Unless you confront and heal these deep emotional wounds, they will continue to manipulate your behavior.
Yeah. You will keep attracting people and experiences that mirror your unhealed parts. It's like a feedback loop from hell, really.
A self-fulfilling prophecy rooted in pain. The wound becomes the blueprint for the life you keep building unknowingly.
This cycle, attracting things that mirror our wounds, this leads to the most extreme and frankly difficult example the source uses.
Yes, the cautionary tale.
It brings in Adolf Hitler. And we need to be absolutely clear, just as the source is, this is strictly presented as an example of unresolved trauma's potential for massive destruction. It's not justifying anything.
Not at all. It's used to illustrate the terrifying endpoint when personal damage goes completely unchecked and metastasizes. The source looks at him through the lens of a broken boy who never healed.
It mentions the source's perspective on his upbringing, the harsh, abusive father who crushed his sense of self-worth, creating this deep internal wound.
And the material suggests that the intense rage he bottled up as a child turned into a monstrous adult pathology.
The source uses this extreme case to make a universal point it believes applies to everyone. It's the warning. When we don't resolve childhood trauma, we risk becoming a danger to ourselves and others.
And that powerful metaphor, unhealed wounds are not neutral. They metastasize. They don't just sit there. They grow, they spread, they become more destructive.
Infecting not just the person, but everything and everyone around them.
And the source connects this extreme example right back to us, the reader, the listener. It's a real wake-up call.
It says Hitler's life is an extreme example, but many of us carry the same emotional blueprint. Wounded child, broken adult, toxic energy.
And then that blunt challenge.
Don't kid yourself. If you don't do the work, you become the weapon.
Oof, you become the weapon. That's designed to shock you into realizing the stakes, isn't it? Your unhealed pain, left to fester, can be wielded, consciously or not.
To inflict pain on others, it's not hypothetical. The source sees it as the inherent danger of carrying deep, unaddressed trauma.
And this potential for harm, this weaponization, it's broadcast through your energy field.
The source really emphasizes this idea. Everyone emits an energy field, a vibration, an aura, an emotional signature, and it directly reflects your internal emotional state.
And the unnerving part is that, like a radio tower, you broadcast your energy whether you're aware of it or not. You can try to put on a brave face.
Say the right things, project an image, but the underlying state leaks out. It's the real signal.
And the source lists what leaks out when the field is full of unresolved pain. Bitterness, that constant neediness, deep shame, unresolved grief just hanging there.
Like static on the broadcast.
Exactly. And the critical point is people feel it. Maybe not consciously, maybe they can't name it, but they feel that energy.
And the source describes two main reactions to this kind of tainted energy.
One is from predatory types, or those drawn to vulnerability. They sense the wounds, the instability, they see an opening for control perhaps, and they're drawn in like sharks to blood, the source implies.
Not good. And the other reaction?
From healthier people maybe, or just those sensitive to chaos. They feel the instability, the intensity, the pain underneath, and they are repelled.
It screams chaos to them,
Yep.
so they instinctively back away, protect themselves.
Right. So neither outcome leads to healthy, stable, reciprocal connections.
And the source just dismisses superficial fixes here, doesn't it?
Completely. You cannot fake a healthy vibration. You cannot positive think your way out of pain. Trying to slap positivity on top of rotting foundations just doesn't work. The real energy overrides the performance.
So the only way through is.
The hard inner work. You must face it, heal it, rewire the emotional circuitry, delve in, process it, actively change the patterns.
And only after doing that deep work, the source insists, does your natural magnetism, your pull, become authentic, grounded.
Yes, and crucially, irresistibly safe. Safe for you and safe for others to be drawn to you without getting burned.
Okay, so moving on from the general broadcast, the material gets really specific about a dangerous pattern, using trauma itself as a tool of seduction.
Yeah, seducing people with your trauma. Often unconsciously, the source says. The pain itself becomes part of the, quote, allure.
Feeding into those archetypes we see, right? Being deep, mysterious, the wounded but romantic figure. There's an intensity there that can be captivating.
People get drawn to that perceived depth or sensitivity,
Yeah.
but the source just cuts through at the reality. But what you're really doing is pulling people into your emotional abyss.
Wow. Not offering connection, but inviting them to drown in your unresolved chaos.
And the source says, look, it works at first. People are drawn to the drama, the intensity. Maybe they want to save you or they feel needed.
But the warning is clear. They soon realize the cost.
And the cost is significant. The reality that emerges is the person is deeply emotionally unavailable, maybe volatile, excessively needy in ways that drain, or manipulative to get those unmet needs met.
These are the direct results of the unhealed pain playing out in the relationship.
And the outcome, according to the source, is devastating. Others either see the danger and run, or they get sucked in and destroyed.
It really hammers home that warning. Unhealed pain poisons the connections around you.
The contrast, again, is with true seductive power. The source says that comes from integration, not being alluring because you're broken, using the pain.
But being magnetic, when you have made peace with your brokenness and no longer weaponize it, it's the wholeness that attracts, not the wound itself.
And recognizing your own wounds helps with another tough truth the source presents. Everyone you meet is wounded. Everyone.
Yeah, that's a big statement. It reframes how you see difficult interactions, doesn't it?
Absolutely. It suggests that hurtful behavior from others often isn't personal. It's their unaddressed pain driving it.
So the friend who betrayed you, the lover who turned toxic or ghosted.
The source suggests looking for the wound beneath their action. What pain might be driving them?
The point isn't to excuse bad behavior, though, is it?
No, not at all. But the goal isn't to avoid all wounded people. The source says that's impossible anyway. The goal is to become so emotionally whole that you can see others' wounds without absorbing them. Build internal resilience.
It becomes about energetic self-preservation, learning to protect your emotional field.
Being able to observe pain, yours or theirs, without becoming entangled in it. That's how you keep your own energy clear. Stop getting pulled into everyone else's drama.
Which ties into empathy, but maybe not how we usually think of it.
Right. The source challenges the idea that empathy makes you weak. It states, quite forcefully, empathy is your shield, not your weakness.
That feels counterintuitive.
Right.
Empathy feels like feeling their pain.
But the source redefines it. Not drowning in their pain, but having the power to understand it. To see its source, its nature, without letting it overwhelm you. It becomes a tool for clarity, for setting boundaries.
So if someone is cruel or insults you with this kind of empathy, you can see it not just as an attack, but as driven by their fear, their insecurity.
Exactly. You see the wound driving their behavior. And when you see that, the source says, you take back your power. It's not about your worth anymore. It's about their internal state.
So their behavior no longer controls your emotions. You can observe it without getting hooked, without reacting from your own triggers.
It's not detachment, the source clarifies. It's clarity. Seeing the reality of their pain allows you to respond from strength, not reactivity.
And this kind of clear-sighted empathy helps you avoid those emotional traps and seduction games rooted in insecurity we talked about earlier.
Yes. You recognize the tactics born from pain and choose not to get caught up in them.
Which is essential for maintaining that healthy, grounded energy, that true magnetism.
You learn to feel deeply, understand the complexity of human pain, but the instruction is vital. Learn to feel deeply, but guard your soul. Protect your inner space.
Which leads us to maybe the toughest but most freeing steps in the whole process, according to this material. Forgiveness and acceptance.
Forgiveness. The source is really direct here. Let's be clear. Forgiveness is not for them, it's for you.
That reframes it entirely. It's not about letting someone off the hook. It's about self-liberation.
Because holding on to anger, resentment, bitterness, it poisons you.
What?
Not them, you. It's an internal energy leak. You are bleeding power.
So that potential magnetic energy is just draining away,
Yeah.
tied up in old grievances.
That's the idea. When you truly forgive, you don't forget or excuse, but you reclaim your emotional freedom. You stop being defined by the hurt. You stop being a victim to it.
You sever the psychic cord that ties you to the pain, that energetic link keeping you stuck in the past suffering.
And that act creates space, essential space for new, healthy energy to come in.
The warning is tied directly to energy and attraction again. Without forgiveness, you remain trapped in a vibration of suffering.
Your whole energy field, your seductive field, stays entangled with the past, and people feel it. It repels peace.
So forgiveness is like essential energetic hygiene.
Pretty much clearing the channel, bringing light where there was only darkness in your emotional field.
And then there's acceptance, described as the final door to freedom. And the source distinguishes true self-love from just like positive affirmations.
Yeah, true self-love here is called brutal.
Brutal. Why brutal?
Brutal because it demands unflinching honesty. Seeing your flaws, your mistakes, your patterns, and still choosing to stay with yourself.
Looking at the parts you don't like, the mistakes, the destructive habits, and instead of hating yourself or rejecting those parts.
You choose presence. You choose commitment to yourself, warts and all. That radical self-honesty and acceptance is emotional maturity and power, according to this.
Yeah, it means accepting those rejected parts from the past. The needy child, the angry teen, the scared adult.
Yes. Because, as the source states simply, you cannot heal what you hate. Acceptance isn't complacency. It's ending the internal war. Stopping the fight against who you are and starting to nurture who you're becoming.
The source mentions Anton Chekhov here, choosing to understand his abusive father's struggles rather than stay consumed by hate.
Choosing compassion, not as weakness, but as profound strength, an act of self-preservation. The source frames that kind of acceptance as making you spiritually indestructible, inner resilience.
Okay, so after all this, the danger, the path through healing, where does this leave us day to day? The source is clear. This isn't a final destination, right?
Not at all. Healing is not linear. You will have setbacks, regressions, old patterns will pop up.
But the power lies in recognizing that, not as failure, but as part of it, and making a conscious choice every day.
The core question the Source poses is, do I react from my wounds or do I respond from my wisdom? Reacting is the old, automatic, pain-driven way. Responding is choosing healing, clarity, acceptance.
So emotional freedom isn't escaping pain, but learning how to carry it gracefully.
Exactly. Integrating your history without letting it run the show.
Yeah.
No longer being held hostage by your history. It informs you, but it doesn't control you.
And the result of all this incredibly hard work is a transformed energy.
A fundamental shift. You become that person who walks into a room and shifts the atmosphere, not because you're loud, but because your energy is clean, stable, peaceful, deeply attractive in a healthy way.
That's the true seductive state the material describes. Grounded, healed, clear.
And the dynamic flips completely. As the Source says, you stop chasing, you start attracting. No longer driven by need or fear. Your internal wholeness, your clean energy becomes the magnet.
Effortlessly drawing the right things to you.
So bringing this all together, the core thesis is unavoidable. Your real power to attract, your true seduction, is your emotional vibration.
Clean energy seduces effortlessly. Dirty energy attracts chaos.
Yeah.
It's that simple and that profound.
And becoming truly irresistible in that healthy, grounded way demands that hard inner work. The Source lists it out. Heal. Face your past brutally. Forgive yourself. Forgive others. Cut those cords. Own your flaws. Build boundaries. Cultivate empathy. Accept who you are, broken parts and all.
It's a huge undertaking.
It is. But the result the Source promises is that your energy transforms from a destructive fire
To a flame that doesn't burn but warms. People are drawn to that warmth, that stability, that safety, maybe without even knowing why.
You're finally attracting from wholeness, not from lack or need.
And that, the Source claims, is the most dangerous form of magnetism. Dangerous in its power, its potency, a sacred magnetism born from healing.
So this deep dive has really been a serious warning, hasn't it? Presented very clearly in the Source material.
Yeah, wake-up call. It insists. Leave your wounds unhealed, and they will define you. They become your identity.
And that identity broadcasts a vibration that just keeps seducing destruction into your life. Relationships, work, health, everything.
The choice, as the Source frames it, feels incredibly stark, almost absolute.
Keep being driven by pain, broadcasting chaos. Or cultivate that true seductive energy, the kind that attracts health by becoming emotionally free.
And that freedom only comes by facing the darkness, healing it, integrating it, becoming magnetic by being whole, not by being wounded.
The material suggests there's this deep, untapped, almost divine power inside you, just buried under all that emotional debris.
And the call to action from the Source is unmistakable. Clear it, purify it, take back your energy, take back your power.
Because the alternative is just, well, keep leaking pain and calling it attraction.
The choice is yours, but the consequences are real.
And that final echoing message from this material, that ultimatum, heal or destroy.
Wow. A really powerful and quite sobering look at the responsibility we have for our own inner world and the energy we put out leaves you with a lot to think about.